Hello and welcome to the Red 78, a Munster podcast for Munster fans. My name is Ruairi O'Hagan. We have a very, very busy show for you today. Lots of talk about Munster's good performance at the Aviva Stadium, new contracts for Munster players, and Peter O'Mahony stepping down as Munster captain. Delighted as always to be joined by two Munster legends, Fiona Hayes and Alan Quinlan, to talk through it all. Guys, how are you?
Good, excellent, Rory.
Yeah, very good, Rory. Yeah, very good. Thanks. Not a bad weekend, I would say. I had a lot of fear on Saturday. I thought it was going to be one of those disastrous Saturdays where my soccer team were playing at 12:30 against City. I thought we were going to get wiped. And I was worried about Munster then on Saturday night, based off the team sheet. 14 of the starters for Leinster were at in the World Cup squad with Ireland. So just the strength of the selection and all that. And look, that's kind of the narrative going into the game, wasn't it? The script, that there was a fear element about what Leinster could do, and I probably had that a little bit with the Man City Liverpool. I had no great expectation for my sporting teams on Saturday, but I was more hopeful. But it turned out pleasantly good. Liverpool got a late equaliser, and I thought Munster, they didn't buy into the narrative. I like that. I like the fact that they didn't go up to Dublin and kind of go with the script in a sense that, yeah, give a good effort and all that, and a pat in the back type scenario. They tried to win the game, and that really pleased me. I think I would have been really frustrated with some decisions in the game that cost them the game. So I'm sure in the podcast we'll talk about, yes, all the good stuff and the positives and the negatives. But for me, I think they should be really angry with themselves. They should be frustrated. Players made some poor decisions at really crucial times. And that's part of your analysis of us having a look at it today, both Fiona and myself, but also Munster themselves and players understanding that to get to that next level, to actually, make good decisions and pressurize moments is the ideal situation. You don't always get that, but there's a couple of incidents in the game, I think, that Munster, they were there for the take in Leinster. They were a bit off, I think, and I think from the tweets and the messages, I think there's a mixed bag of Munster fans being really happy, but also I think from a Leinster point of view, they were a bit off, and we had a situation where you could have really went for the jugular, and then just a couple of things, small things, which I think you need to be hard on yourself and you need to be critical of yourself internally. But look, overall, I love the fact that they went there and they brought the passion and the effort and the commitment, but they also brought some great quality in what they did, and they were, so many good things in their performance.
Yeah, we've had a lot of tweets and comments in. If you'd like to get your comment read on the show, you can either tweet Alan or Fiona, or you can send us an email, the rugby channel at bowermedia.ie. Fiona, you have a lot of those comments there. We can't get to all of them, obviously, because we got a lot in this week. A lot of people enthused by Munster's performance, but as Alan was saying, maybe a suggestion that we left behind us.
Yeah, look, that's it. Loads of interaction this week. Great to see. We'll start off with an all Leinster fan, Liam Casey. He says, I'm a Leinster fan, and for me, Munster backs were positive. Crowley looked assured. Zebo has a bit of X factor. Zip back. Casey is really sharp. Forwards outside of Coombs, all 10% behind their opposite numbers. I'm not sure I agree with that, but we leave them.
But look, everybody has their opinion.
Yeah.
And I thought some of the Munster forwards were 10-15% better than some of the Leinster forwards.
Yeah, 100%. We'll go to Ross McConnell. Munster are developing young and not so young players and playing the game of rugby to win. Not something we did under Van Gran. He's saying new coaching team deserves a lot of respect. Seems to be a clear, honest purpose now. A North Star all are working towards. So I 100% agree. This coaching ticket has really impressed me. And Per Johnson, overall positive. Didn't expect Munster to play that well with ball in hand, which is huge. One thing though, could some with inside context, please tell them to play high percentage rugby in brackets, e.g. never go for a turnover, which is 75% of the case result in a penalty to the opposition. So he was just looking at the breakdown there, and we'll leave it off with Ray. Leinster really poor and didn't build any pressure or momentum. I'm going to say that had a lot to do with Munster's defence as well. Repeatedly spilled the ball at key times. Munster never looked like a real threat despite the wonderful first try. Never kept scoreboard ticking either. Wasted opportunity to snatch a rare win. Gap is huge, I think. So that's what Ray thinks, but
I disagree that Munster never fired a shot. I thought their attack was exceptional at times, and they really stressed Leinster. So look, again, when you watch the game back, there's certainly a couple of opportunities there that Munster could have scored, could have been more clinical, if you like. But
yeah,
I think the overall, have you more, Fiona, or?
Yeah, I just see Chris Tobin as well was touching on that big improvement, but we're not clinical, just like you said enough. That's the difference. 10-3, we're on the Leinster patient, and it's 17-3 if we're on the line. 3 defensive lapses, cost 3 tries. Burns loose pass, Coombs not guarding the pillar for Sheehan's try, and Zebo's missed tackle. He said, although he was injured for that last try. So just being clinical around that area, like you said, Quinny.
Yeah, guys, come on, I just jumped in there. It seems, Alan, that like Munster fans are disappointed that they didn't get a win at the Aviva Stadium, which is a massive positive sign, I suppose, for Munster this season.
Yeah, it's been a bit of the Roy Keane scenario, which I actually thought of him on Saturday night. Just thinking, would he be happy? What would he say in the studio afterwards? Would he say, "Oh God, great Munster, pat in the back"? But ultimately, they lost the match here. They haven't won league points against Leinster in a number of years. Leinster have had the dominance. But when you peel it back and you look at, again, as we say, the quality, the internationals, the current internationals that are in that squad, and where Munster are trying to get to, they are the current URC champions, and they did fantastically well. It was an amazing win last year. Back in May is all, so it's not that long ago that they were tasting and that success. But yes, I think the narrative is that and the feeling is, yes, lots of positives, and because there was probably a little bit of fear there, but I just thought the players applied themselves really well. They stayed in the fight. They created a hard edge. And you need that. I've always said that, you have to have a little bit of that edge when you put on a Munster jersey. Some may disagree that, I went over that the line as regards edge at times or whatever. But I mean, just an edge that you really believe, and you bring a hardness to your game. And that's what good teams do. Leinster have a real edge, and they've had a real edge in the last number of years in reaching finals and winning trophies. But I think that's where Munster, it pleased me that they were in the fight, and they brought they didn't buy into the fact that Leinster are supposed to win this game. They actually tried to play, and they attacked, and the work rate out of the players, their defensive work, their shape in attack, their work rate to get back on high box kicks that Jamison Gibson Park put up. I thought they did so much stuff really well, and they got their emotion right without getting over excited. I think they were really good in so many facets of their game, which was really positive to see, and I think that's what the fans feel. But yes, like I said at the start, we shouldn't accept that this is where we're at. I think we should take it for what it is and say, yes, there's lots of improvements. Munster weren't spooked by the occasion. Bigger Leinster crowd, obviously 50,000 people, incredible scenario, for the URC as well. To be fair, we've got to mention that, and it was a good bite to the game. Yes, of course, Leinster were a little bit off it, but I think Munster made it really difficult for them, and that's what you've got to do against a team like Leinster with all their we know about their momentum and their quick breakdowns and the way they can hurt teams, and when they get their pace and tempo going. So Munster managed that really well, and first and foremost, they were physical. They got stuck in, and then actually they were quite intelligent in the way they played, and they stressed Leinster, which is really important to see. So yes, lots of really good positives, and I think the fans feel the same. But the player in me says, right, we've got to get better. How can we get to the level now where we're clinical and we win that game? That's the challenge going forward. So what do? You review the video, you look at space, you look at opportunities, you look at times where a clean out needed to be better, a pass needed to be given. I think Shane Daly cuts back in at one side a time there where if Jack Crowley pushes around, and actually Jack Crowley is the first receiver, it's probably a 4-on-2 for Leinster there late on in the game. I think the game was still in the balance, and Leinster hadn't scored the third try. If you look back at that period, it was a really crucial period where Leinster could have scored a try there, and or Munster could have scored a try. So certain things, yes, they look back on, but to strive to get better, they've got to look at it themselves, and I think that's what the fans feel. So it's really good to see that.
Yeah, it certainly is. Fiona, what positives do you take from Munster's performance? Because there, as Alan was mentioning, there certainly was quite a number of positives to take from that performance.
Yeah, absolutely. Huge performance to take from it. Look, we sat here last week, lads, discussing how bad the scrum was and how they got done at times. Look, I think to have John Klein and Tadhg Byrne in the second row, they obviously pushed Tom Ahern to 6, and I think that had a lot to do with scrummaging and having those big guys behind the props. I think John Archer had a great game. Look, he obviously had a couple of penalties against him, but Andrew Porter is the starting loosehead for Ireland. I think I actually thought Archer probably could have got a couple of more penalties. I thought there was a couple of hinging in. I thought he anchored the scrum really well. He did his job. He knew to just get in there and hold his own, and he got the strike back. So that was huge for me, that the scrum they were able to win their own ball at times, which we said they needed to do going into this game, and went after Leinster on a couple of occasions as well. And it was great to see Kilcoyne come on the pitch in the second half, and the line out, Tadhg Byrne got up and got a couple of steals. There was a lot of variety in it. We spoke about how we were going to set up our maul. Still didn't see enough out of the maul. But I did see variety and movement around winning that ball, and I think to have Thomas Ahern, Tadhg Byrne and Jean Klein as go-to options was huge for Munster, and you could see that it stretched Leinster's defence in making decisions around that line-out time. So there was huge moments in the game, and I suppose, look, what really stood out to me, I love talking about scrums and forwards, and I talk about them all day, but I have to say Jack Crowley, just watching him throughout the game, how he was so composed. Huge moment for me was to see this is the guy that I want on my team. I think it was around the 64th minute. There was a loop around play. Crowley passed it out to Shane Daly, who gave quite a low pass to Shane McCarthy. He stretched his hand and unfortunately couldn't get it. Larmer was coming through. If he kicked that ball and was able to connect, it was probably a guaranteed or a 50-50 Leinster try. What Crowley done was amazing for a 10. He slid across the ground and threw his body in front of that kick, and that was huge to see a 10 put his body on the line like that. He knew he was in those big moments defensively. Yes, he took it to the gain line. He created space. He barked at those forwards and moved them around the place, but it was defensively. I think he got a very good turnover as well at the breakdown where he judged it and got his hands in the ball. So it's brilliant to see these type of caliber players stand up now, and these big games, you can easily go to sleep or you can be hidden when you're playing against the Leinster team. And the minute Ross Byrne went off, there was no doubt for me that Crowley was the man controlling the pack around the place. Yes, for all he had a good game, but watching Crowley from start to finish, it was one of his better games I've seen in a Munster jersey.
There seems to be an interesting narrative developing.
Just to add to the positives there, Rory, and it's probably one I know I like looking in at the stats because they're not always accurate and don't tell the picture. But when you go away from home and you 53% possession against Leinster, that's a big positive. That means you're controlling the ball, you're holding on to it well, you're winning it back. The next one I would have is clean breaks. So how many clean breaks do we have against Ulster? 1. We had 9 against Leinster. Potentially the best team in Europe, one of the best teams in Europe. So you have 9 clean breaks. So that would indicate the attack and the shape, the work rate to get in position, to realign was really good. And if you think of the first try that the brilliant try that Craig Casey scores, what does that come off? It comes off a Jamison Gibson Park box kick. That Munster win, gather really well. Jeremy Lockman makes a carry, gets a little edge, and then they put it through the hands, and it's a try in the opposite corner. That tells you that the work rate is really good, getting back and getting in your shape early. The quicker you can get in your shape in attack is the better you can launch your strike plays, because again, you're probably not expected, the opposition don't expect you to go and put it through the hands when you receive a box kick back in your own half. They think you'll truck it up for a player or two and maybe kick back down to the opposition. Leinster exploited that and were really brave in what they did there, executed. So 9 line breaks is really good. 19 defenders beaten is really good. 4 offloads. I think territorially 45% as opposed to 55 for Leinster. So could Munster have stayed in the Leinster half for longer periods? Yes. And we saw some crucial turnovers. I think the Quinlan one, and I'd probably elaborate on that around 60th minute. Munster on the attack. They make some really good inroads. They go back towards the post. Caelan Doris pops in, robs the ball. There's a bit of a schmozzle. It's a scrum. Leinster get a free kick from the scrum. Kieran Frawley puts it down into touch, which is the right thing to do. They didn't go, we're taking another scrum here. We're just going to kick long. Frawley puts it around the halfway line. They get the ball back. And a couple of minutes later, Jordan Larmour's gone in the corner. And in between of that, I think there was a couple of kicks up and back. Gavin Coombs, through the middle of ruck, stands up and he hits Jamison Gibson Park's hands and gives away a penalty. From that penalty in the halfway line, Leinster kick into the corner and the try comes from that. So in a 5-minute period there, Munster backed up some errors. And then as opposed to being on the attack, protecting and really being diligent at protecting that breakdown where they had Leinster pinned back a little bit and stressed, and it was 14-13 at this point. So maybe you get a penalty, maybe you go for a drop goal, maybe you go ahead there and on the 60th minute, and that, what does that give Munster? So that was a crucial period. And then, Jordan Larmour 5 minutes later, as I said, is gone in the corner on the back of a couple of mistakes and errors from Munster. And, you think at 21-13, well, that's the game. But Munster, in fairness, came back, they get the penalty and it was a little bit of squeaky bum time at the end. I know Munster, of course, right at the end of the game, Tyke Byrne gets the turnover penalty to, I think it would have been really cruel on Munster if the losing bonus point was taken away from them. So that's a real big positive for me, because we're all about attack and how Munster's attack shape has improved. And I think they got a little bit of that flow back into their game on Saturday against a really good team. And on the flip side of that, defensively, then they were very aggressive in their line speed and their contacts with Leinster. I think Leinster's video this week will be all about the mistakes and errors they made. So that's really positive. 5 turnovers won, but 6 turnovers for Leinster. So I think, that's probably an area, a couple of those crucial turnovers were kind of crucial in the game. So as I said, I'll reiterate, 9 line breaks, clean line breaks against Leinster would indicate that it was I think one of our tweeters was saying there that Munster didn't really kind of attack or didn't look like they had anything, any sort of cohesion around attack. I thought it was totally the opposite. I thought Munster really looked really good at times against probably one of the best teams in Europe, who will probably be, I'm sure, contending and the team to beat in the URC and in Europe.
Yeah, and with that as well, like they got like, I know you can talk about, errors, but Gary Ringrose, a world-class 13, jumped out of the line twice. Munster's attacking play, yes, on that beautiful break by Zebo, he came up and missed a tackle, but also Crowley had a lovely loop around pass. He came up, missed that tackle as well. So that shows a lot of that Munster attack. If you're getting those guys to jump out the line, leave their systems, it means they're under pressure.
Right, enough of the positives. There's still a lot. We've a long way to go.
And that's what I wanted to get into as well.
I think we've a long way to go still. Not a long way. I think we're making really good progress, and I like the mentality. And I think for the young players who were in Belfast and who it was really disparaging and disheartening after that, because I thought, we covered that for 60 minutes, I think. We didn't really fire a shot. we fired shots the other night, and I think that's the level. And they've got to believe in themselves that, you know, they can step up. I know we're going to go through some of the players, are we, in a minute, Rory? But Fiona did cover some of them. But overall, there's still some issues, and there's still some really good players to come back in the group.